When Australian author Tom Keneally decided to move into a smaller home, one of his big concerns was what to do with his extensive collection of books and memorabilia. He approached billionaire businessman Frank Lowy with an idea, and the result is the Thomas Keneally Centre, to be housed in the Sydney Mechanics School of Arts. The centre opens next month, but this week the author gave 7:30 New South Wales a preview. So here it is.
Here we are, yes.
Tom Keneally couldn't be happier. His old friends have found a new home.
We've got Patrick White here. Old Morris West, who used to live at Avalon, and he died at the end of a sentence on a Saturday afternoon by his pool. He wrote a very good paragraph and died, which, if you've got to go, is the way to go.
As a writer, yes.
Some of them are simply books I bought or my wife bought for the fun of it, fun reading, and some of them are books that I bought for research. And there are, within this library, therefore, fairly extensive patches of books on the one big subject. But I went to Frank Lowy because I knew he was a philanthropist interested in the arts. The walls of his office are full of wonderful paintings. And I asked him, could a room be built somewhere to store them? And he said yes. They're very diverse. Anyone looking at this library would say, what's this bloke doing?
Close to 3,000 books will eventually fill these shelves. Do you have any particular favourites or any that have a terrific story attached to them?
Oh, there are many that have stories attached to them. There are books that were involved in the writing of The Chant of Jimmy Blacksmith and the writing of the notorious Schindler book. There are books about Irish famine. They're all equally precious. There are books written by friends of mine and signed by friends of mine. You see in a succession of novels certain interest, but there's no one that's more beloved than others, I don't think. The writer of this report,
which is about the 9/11.
It is the 9/11 Commission report, and he signed it. He says, for Keneally, this is very narcissistic to read this, for Keneally, who actually knows something about history. It's signed by him. So it's a precious book, of course. There's quite a bit of anthropology too. I've always been interested in anthropology, but then there are detective novels that, of course, my wife bought. I didn't.
The titles and authors point to a broad range of style and subject, from Graham Greene to Bob Woodward, from Russia to romance.
Maeve Binchy, she's a dear Irish friend of mine. We don't read each other's stuff for fear it will spoil our friendship.
So you've not read that book?
I've not, but I believe they're de rigueur for every woman.
So, Tom, there's nothing snobbish about this collection. I mean, it doesn't have to be some great piece of literature to be here necessarily.
No, there is some really great writing in here, but the tastes are fairly broad. This man is a friend of mine, Simon Sebag Montefiore. He blurbed my last book. You know how authors tell lies about each other on the covers of books?
This is where the collection began, at Tom Keneally's former home on Sydney's northern beaches.
This is a pool table I've always worked on. I know it looks chaotic, but I've got original documents, magazine articles, and maps and books, and somehow out of this terrible, messy melange, we get a book.
Were there any especially precious books that you felt you couldn't give up, that you've still got at home?
Well, there are a few. I've got an edition, first edition of John Monash's Australian Victories in 1918, signed to one of his officers. And that's the sort of book I cherish. I've got an old Mark Twain edition, which has, from the 19th century, which has the wrong picture and caption on one of the pages, the wrong illustration, which apparently makes it very interesting. And all these books will end up here.
Are there any books here that you would actually disown?
Some of them are my early works. It's interesting, and I'm not kidding, it's interesting that old novels are like old love letters that you wrote in your 20s, you know, and look back on from a distance. If you encounter one, it embarrasses the blazes out of you.
40 books later, Tom Keneally is still hard at work. His next book, Another History, is due out later this year.
Australians' Eureka to the Diggers, and it goes up to about 1920, and about how we committed ourselves to being white Australia very strongly at the Paris Peace Treaty and all that would come out of that.
And the 75-year-old has nearly finished another novel about two sisters who served in World War I.
It's based on the journals of nurses, and it is about how they deal with the prejudices that existed in those days, which were even fiercer, intensely more fierce than the prejudices that exist now. And it's about their education on a hospital ship off Gallipoli and then in France.
The Thomas Keneally Centre is due to open next month. The writer hopes it will become a lively spot for literary activity, from book launches to writing classes.
This is a place I feel happy putting the books I'm finished with, and where I feel that I won't lose them when I die. They'll still be there somehow on a spiritual level with me. Mind you, I'm not sure there is a spiritual level after death, but if there were, these books would still exist as part of my extended self. And so I didn't have to sell them. I didn't have to wait until I die and then leave it all to my daughters to work out what to do with them. They're going to have enough to do organising the wake. And so it's wonderful to have these shelves here in this beautiful room.